In today's video, we're going to look at the no contact rule after a breakup, what you might be trying to achieve by using it, and whether it actually works at all. This is going to help you decide what you should do to look after yourself after a relationship has ended. And if you are dealing with a breakup or any other relationship issue, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for all of the best advice to having happy, healthy relationships. So we can't answer the question about whether the no contact rule actually works until we talk a little bit about why you might want to go no contact and what exactly it is that you're trying to achieve. So let's look at the possible things that you might want to achieve after a breakup that could involve going no contact. One of the first things that you might need to think about is what you need to do to heal. So when a relationship ends, it's completely natural to feel upset and raw and vulnerable. That's the case actually whether you were the person who initiated the breakup or whether you were the one who was broken up with. Now, especially if it was a serious or long-term relationship, you might find yourself grieving for the future that you thought you had together, which is never going to happen now. In this case, seeing your ex around or keeping in touch might feel like it keeps reopening those wounds and making it harder for you to heal. Every time you see them, you're reminded of how you felt about them in the past and the lost potential that died when your relationship broke down. Going no contact is one way of giving yourself the space that you need to grieve properly and to heal. Think about it as if you're putting a band-aid over an open wound. We put a band-aid over an open wound to stop something nasty getting into it and causing more damage or delaying our healing. Going no contact is the emotional equivalent of that. You're protecting your emotional open wound until it has time to heal enough that it can protect itself. If you want to use the no contact rule for this purpose, it is likely to be effective, provided you commit to it. All kinds of contact can cause pain, including seeing his posts on social media or just trying to check that he's okay. If you want to give yourself the space to heal, you're going to need to be really strict about not contacting him, reading his posts, or asking mutual friends for updates. Annoyingly, the more difficult you find this, the less effective it's being. This is because you're probably still thinking about him and giving him space in your mind and in your daily life. The second thing you might try to use the no contact rule to do is to make sure that you're not tempted to go back to a relationship that you know isn't good for you. Sometimes we have to leave a relationship even though we still love the other person deeply. I know I've had that experience, and you might well have as well. And honestly, it's horrible. You love them and you desperately wish that you could have a successful relationship together. But unfortunately, you can't. When you're in that situation, it can be really important to go no contact for a while. This gives you a chance to allow your emotions to settle down and for you to get used to the idea that your life doesn't include a relationship with that person. If you saw them frequently, it would be almost impossible to get over them, given how badly you both still wish that you could be with each other. Now, I was lucky. When this happened to me, we lived in different cities, and we each had a friendship group in our own city. We had people who could look after us, who didn't remind us of each other and weren't completely intertwined with our lives. Now, in my case, it took about 6 months before we could spend time together and start to build a friendship. If I'm honest, it still wasn't easy. But if we hadn't followed the no contact rule for a while first, I think we probably would have tried to get back together. Now, while that might sound like it would be a better solution, it wouldn't have been. I can look back on it now as a relationship with a lovely man, which we ended to avoid hurting each other. And we still have a lot of affection between us. If we tried again, we would probably have ended up hating each other. And that would be a real shame. The no contact rule can help you avoid going back into a relationship that you know isn't healthy, and can even help you stay friends in the long run. You might also use the no contact rule as a way to protect yourself from a traumatic relationship or an abusive partner. Now, not everyone you date will be as benign and lovely as the ex I just described, sadly. Unfortunately, sometimes we find ourselves in a relationship with someone who actually doesn't have our best interests at heart and who is willing to hurt or harm us to get what they want. If this is the case, you can use going completely no contact as a way to keep yourself safe. You might, in some cases, even need to change your phone number and lock down your social media completely to prevent an abusive ex from stalking you or trying to cross your boundaries. In these cases, it's important that your friends and family also know that they shouldn't share any information with them about where you are, what you're doing, how to contact you, anything at all, even just, are you okay? Now, I'm going to be honest and say that I find it very difficult to block someone completely, especially if I don't trust them. For me, I find it scary. If I think that someone might want to harm me, I feel the need to be able to hear what they say so that I can evaluate the risk. That doesn't actually mean it's the best strategy, though. In general, it's often better to just remove an abusive ex from your life in every way that you possibly can, especially if you find receiving their texts or messages upsetting and stressful, which is perfectly natural. Now, the fourth reason you might want to go no contact is to give you the space you need to remember who you are outside of the relationship. This is especially important if you've been in a codependent relationship, because you might have been so focused on doing the things that your partner liked and what they wanted to do that you've actually forgotten how to be alone, and you've forgotten exactly what it is that makes you happy. Staying in contact with your ex, especially if you have shared hobbies or interests, keeps you in the same pattern that you were in before. By contrast, going no contact gives you the space you need to be able to discover new passions and rediscover old ones. You can also use a period of no contact to give yourself the space you need to really think about your personal needs and boundaries when it comes to a relationship, any relationship. Again, this is probably going to be even more important if you've been in a codependent relationship. Lots of us find boundaries are really, really difficult, both knowing where they are and working out how to communicate and enforce them. Although we can only really learn to communicate our boundaries by actually communicating with someone, we can use a period of no contact to start to think about what we do and don't want in our future relationships. Over time, you'll be able to think about the things that you find refreshing about being single or going no contact with your ex. These are things that you will probably want a boundary around in the future. For example, you might really love the fact that you have time to spend by yourself. In your relationship, maybe your ex expected you to spend your free time always doing things or helping him out with something or hanging out with friends. Now you're single, you might realize that you need at least one evening a week alone to recharge. When you do finally look for a new relationship, you'll be able to explain that you're happier and more emotionally relaxed when you spend at least one evening at home alone. You've found a boundary or a need, and you're in a position to communicate it because you had that space and no contact. Now, the final thing you might use no contact rule to try and achieve is getting back together with your ex. Now, the principle here is that going no contact with someone after a relationship will lead them to miss you and want you back. That's certainly a possibility. But there's absolutely no guarantee that he's going to come back to you. In fact, going no contact in the hope that he will want to get back together is borderline manipulative. In this case, you're not doing it because it's right for you or because you think it's the right thing to do. You're only doing it to try and change what he does. This is unlikely to be healthy for you. Even if it does succeed, you're still going to need to address the underlying issues that led you to break up in the first place. I think that this is a good example of doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. And I don't think you get as much out of it as you would if you focused more on trying to heal yourself and work through your personal pain. As you can see from everything we've said so far in today's video, using the no contact rule after a breakup can be really useful. It can give you the space and distance that you need to start putting yourself back together. But that doesn't mean it's always the right decision or that it's the only way to deal with a breakup. I've had a breakup where I stayed living with my ex for over a year. Trying to observe a no contact rule there would have led to some very awkward moments if we were both in the kitchen, for example. You also might not be able to use the no contact rule if you have a child with your ex. If you have a breakup where there's a child involved, unfortunately, your needs and your healing really do need to come second to your child's welfare, especially if they're really, really young. If you're going to use the no contact rule with your ex, there are a few guidelines. Unless he was abusive, it's just unkind to disappear from view and blank him without having told him what you're doing. If he was abusive, it might technically still count as unkind. I just don't care. And frankly, nor should you. It might also be helpful to give a time limit. It can be tempting to see our exes as if they're some kind of a Disney villain. And in most cases, they're not. They're just flawed human beings just like us. Once the pain of your breakup has reduced, you might find that you can become good friends, but you'll never find out if you see no contact as being forever. You don't always need to cut yourself off from someone that you used to love. So that's our video on whether the no contact rule can be helpful after a breakup. What do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you soon.